Hi there guys, welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy, continuing on with my franchise review series. I hope you've enjoyed them thus far. This episode will be focusing on the Washington Redskins. So for this series, what I'm doing is I'm breaking down the last 10 years worth of records, giving you the overall record, any playoff appearances, that kind of thing, as well as any coaching changes, and then going through the last 10 years worth of draft picks, grading that. I'll explain the scoring system once I get to that section of the video. And at the end of the week for the Friday review episode, I'm going to get into some real detail once I've got all those statistics amassed, and we'll see what kind of correlation there is between draft success and having a good overall record. So the Skins, interesting franchise. Similar to the Cowboys, they've got an owner that wants success, is willing to spend money to do it, and maybe less so these days, but will make decisions himself and get his own way. Had a variety of coaches, Joe Gibbs for the 07 season, Jim Zorn, what a disaster that was in 08 and 09, Mike Shanahan for 2010-2013, RG3 really killed that, and Jay Gruden for the last 3 years. In this time frame, they've amassed a record of 66 wins, 93 losses, and 1 tie. So very impressive managing to get a tie. That was in London against the Bengals this year. So 3 playoff appearances in that time, 2 division wins. Sort of big gaps between. They've been a real kind of roller coaster of a team. Those few good records and then lots of poor ones in between. So let's get to the drafting and see if that reflects there. So what I'm doing is I'm grading every first, second and third round pick that a team makes. If they're a solid player, they achieve more, it was a good pick, more than they perhaps should have for their draft position, they will add a score of +1. If they're mediocre, they work out kind of middling, perfectly fine for the pick, but nothing spectacular, that'll be a 0. No effect on the score. And if they're a bust, it will be -1 for picks made in rounds 4 through 7. If they have any impact, they will be designated value picks and add a score of +1. No point going through all them, simply because having done this list, most of them never amount to anything, and it will really skew the scores, just going bust, 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 bust. So yeah, expectation rounds 1 through 3 starters or contributors. After that, anything you get is a bonus as far as I'm concerned. So, the 2007 draft, just the first round pick there for the Skins. Laron Landry, the safety, made a Pro Bowl. Not quite sure how. I feel he was a bust. I think he had a very underwhelming career, in particular for a top 10 pick. And that was a loaded draft class. So, not taking the actual draft class into account, but he was a bust considering where he was picked. In 2008, one of the worst draft classes. On the Friday episode, I am going to do my top 10 favourite and least favourite draft classes over this time frame. This is a contender for the worst. 3 second rounders. Devin Thomas, wide receiver, he was a bust. Fred Davis, the tight end, middling. I'll go middling there. I put bust initially, but I think middling is more fair there. And in the second, also Malcolm Kelly, the wide receiver, he also did nothing and was a bust. Chad Reinhardt, the offensive lineman, in the third, mediocre, okay player. Could probably go with solid there, but I'm going to be a bit more strict, I think, and go mediocre. 2009, in the first, Brian Orakpo with the 13th pick, the outside linebacker. He's been a solid player throughout his NFL career, now plying his trade with the Titans. In the third round, Kevin Barnes, a defensive back. He has been a bust. Moving on to 2010, we've got Trent Williams with a 4th overall pick, the offensive tackle, one of the best tackles in the league throughout his career. Real solid pick. They nailed that one, especially considering the lack of high-end tackle play in the league. Great job there. And in the no seconds or thirds, in the 4th, Perry Riley, the linebacker. He's provided solid value. He's a pretty good player. So, good job there. 2011, we've got Ryan Kerrigan, 16th overall pick. Really, really good player. Kind of flies a bit under the radar. Great pick. He's worked out well. Best player on that defense at this moment in time. In the second, Jarvis Jenkins, the defensive lineman, he was a bust. And in the third, wide receiver Leonard Hankerson, he was a bust. The 2012 draft, this has to go down as one of the worst, simply because the RG3 trade was an absolute train wreck for this team. Of course, the fantastic rookie season and then just totally flaming out after that. Of course, they gave up a ton to get him, which will be reflected in the next 2 years of draft picks. Yeah, that's a bust. In the third, Josh Liribas, guard, he didn't do anything. He was a bust. In the fourth, Kirk Cousins, quarterback, fantastic value there. Yeah, of course, starting quarterback at the moment, pretty solid quarterback at that. And in the sixth, Alfred Morris, who's had a pretty reasonable career, great value for a 6th round selection. In the 2013 draft, we've got David Amerson in round 2, the defensive back. Mediocre, played okay. I think he plays for the Raiders now, doesn't he? He was okay for them last year. Could edge towards bust, but I think he's shown he might actually go on to have a reasonable career from here on in. In the third, Jordan Reed, great pick. One of the best receiving tight ends currently in the league. Moving on to the last three, just as a little aside, I'm being a little more generous with these, of course. Some of these are players who've only been in the league 1 or 2 years. Harder to come to a distinct evaluation, so I'm going to be on the fence a little more with some of these. Second round pick in 2014, Trent Murphy, linebacker. He's not really done anything. Could be a bust, but I'll be generous there. Morgan Moses, the offensive lineman, okay depth. Again, not doing too much there. Same with Spencer Long. That might be Lang, but either way, hadn't done anything. So they all get mediocre grades there. Not really added to the team, but not really hurt it either at this point. 2015 draft, we've got Brandon Scherf, the O-lineman. He's been playing at guard for them. He's been very effective there. 5th overall pick. Whilst I'm not a huge fan of picking a guard necessarily at 5th, he has been very good, so I will give them a solid for that. It looks like he might be one of the better offensive linemen in the league. In the second, Preston Smith. He's an okay player. I'll give him a solid for now because I think he looks like a sort of player that might improve. In the third, Matt Jones. Perfectly reasonable. Not willing to go so far as solid yet because there have been issues there. I don't feel like they trust him. In the fourth, Jameson Crowder, the wide receiver. He's been good value over these 2 seasons. Really played quite well at times last year. And we got the 2016 draft. Josh Doxson, the wide receiver. He did absolutely nothing. Missed most of the year with injury. Be interesting to see if he can replace one of the 2 departing receivers in the starting lineup and perform well. In the second, Saul Cravens, linebacker. Need to see more of him. Similarly with Kendall Fuller, the 3rd round defensive back, who may end up being really good value. I like his college tape. So, in total, the Redskins, it's an interesting one. A lot of mediocrity. A lot of players who've just sort of not really had too much of an impact in the league, but they've made up the basis of the starting lineup. Now, I think that may be partially because there's been a fair few trades made. Of course, the RG3 trade, they gave up an absolute bunch. So there have been less selections. I mean, only 7 first-rounders made in this time frame. 4 of them have been solid. 2 busts and 1, I'm still waiting on Doxson, so we'll see there. That's not a bad ratio. Not a bad job with the value. Well, not a great job with value, only 4. So yeah, just not a whole lot of impact from these drafts. There haven't been too many disasters. I've got 9 busts, 6 solid, 4 value for a total score of +1, which is pretty poor. Certainly not in the tops in the league. But you look at this roster at the minute, it's clearly pretty talent devoid, particularly on the defensive side of the ball where there's just about nothing. Yeah, this last year's draft class, and this one's will be very important for seeing where this team goes. So what do you guys think? You found this exercise to be useful? Agree, disagree with any of my picks? Let me know. Cover Zero on Twitter, Facebook, or in the comments down below. I'll do my absolute best to get back to absolutely everyone. I've really enjoyed doing this series. Definitely check the Friday episode. I think all of this information will make a degree more sense. You see, whether there's any validity to it when I break all that stuff down. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's thoroughly appreciate when people do. You can check out the Patreon It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed doing this series thus far. Thank you very much for your time. If you enjoyed it, please check out some more shows. And as always, go Bucks.